Get started. Well, I appreciate everybody that is joining us live today and those that are going to listen to this later. Just a reminder, this is a community meetup. While we do want to share candid stories, successes, and challenges and things people are doing to overcome, it's also a chance for connection and conversation. So if you are joining us live, we encourage that you share a little bit about yourself and inject some comments or kudos throughout or at the end. And of course, if you are not listening live or you're here with cameras off, that's totally fine and welcome. Part of being a community means that we embrace the lifestyle we have because business is happening and life is happening and it's all coinciding. And so that's why we're sharing some of these stories throughout the year. And I'm very excited because our guest today is Sarah Barker, and we are doing an update with her. She has had a very exciting year, and I am just overjoyed to have her share some of that energy with us because energy is contagious, and we want to contain some of the end of the year woes by building up some energy so we can finish strong. So Sarah, thank you for being here today. Sarah, before we get started, everybody usually introduces themselves that's on the call with you so that you know who's here and committed to you, and they feel committed for being present. So I'll introduce myself first. My name is Adam Griggs. I am the co-founder of a software company called CLARAfi, and I'm your moderator. And I'm going to turn it over to Elena with GoDaddy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elena. I am on Team GoDaddy. I work in the community and hosting our virtual events, which is usually our virtual monthly meetups. I love connecting with you guys in the group and in our community. Love seeing your faces, or I guess your names rather, in our events. Well, some of your faces. And I am excited to meet you, Sarah. And I've seen you around in the group, but I haven't actually heard you speak before. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
I love GoDaddy. I think I have like 20 domains with you right now.
We love to hear that.
Yeah, thank you for that. And thank you to the GoDaddy team for always making these possible. Mr. Kagan.
Yeah, I'm Patrick Kagan, a member of the group and big fan of Sarah. I get to see Sarah's interactions in the group. So anybody who's watching in the rebroadcast, I encourage you to join one of these meetups because it's a great way to get to know people. Great way to spend 30, 40, maybe an hour together. And I'm just looking forward to hearing what Sarah has to say and to echo what Adam was saying with Sarah's energy. Energy cannot be stifled, it can only be transferred. So I'm looking forward to what she has to transfer today. So glad to be here and glad to be listening to what Sarah has to say.
Patrick, thanks so much for being here. And just a quick shout out to you. Sarah and I both actually worked with Patrick through some of his stuff earlier this year when we did an open workshop with him. So there's a lot going on in the community. Definitely embrace others because there is opportunity for growth, connection, and of course, sharing that energy. So thank you, Patrick. Lindsay, do you want to introduce yourself?
I am Lindsay, co-founder of Waymaker. We help businesses dream big and then take action. Yeah, I haven't been in months, and then this is my second session, so I'm sure you're very excited.
Love it. Thank you for being here. I threw you kind of in the hot seat right there. So that brings us to Sarah. Sarah, you are on fire right now. Your business is incredibly active. I see you all over the place doing events and talking to people and just making life happen and making business happen. And I'm seeing this ripple effect, right? There's tons and tons of people that are bragging about their successes that are coming out of working with you. So talk to us about, first of all, what do you do? Because there are going to be members of the community that don't know what you do, first of all. And then maybe we can talk about the journey that's gotten you to today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Adam, for having me on today. And it's nice to see you guys here. I appreciate you being here and listening to my story. So what do? I own a company called Connect Our Elders, and our tagline is empowering aging. I've been in the elder care industry for 10 plus years. And I feel passionate about redefining the way the senior care industry serves the referral partners, so the people that send us clients, and redefining the way that we are serving seniors across the United States. So the way that we do this is Connect Our Elders is a concierge advisory level firm who interacts with referral partners, whether that be a healthcare professional or a legal financial professional. And we work with the families to first and foremost bring the overwhelm and the stress down and offer some assurance that there are resources that exist to support them. And then we bring them through the advisory process and make recommendations and make sure that they get connected to the appropriate resources for them. So that's connect our elders. And then also I have a passion for teaching, and that goes back to being fortunate to teach soldiers and the military. I love to see people grow, right? And I love to empower people. So when I say that I want to redefine the way the senior care industry is serving referral partners and families alike, I could do that myself through my company, or I could figure out a way where I'm going to create a larger impact. And so the way that I do that is through the Senior Care Sales Solutions Academy. And we'll be rolling out some advanced classes for the graduates of the academy. But what happens is they come in, go through some immersive, intensive training, get to take the tools away from them, because what we're doing is credentialing them with the empowering aging philosophy. So basically creating this army of senior care professionals across the US that are going to help me redefine the way the senior care industry serves.
I love the way that you just said that. They're going to help you redefine, and you're helping them. It's reciprocal, right? And your energy right there when you're talking about it is awesome. I mean, yes, you have tasks in there, business things that you need to get dealt with, right? You need to make sales, you need to find clients, you've got to make things happen. And in the world of aging and senior care, it is not necessarily an easy task. First of all, it is littered with red tape. It is very frustrating and often a little bit heart-wrenching, because we know that we're gearing up for end of life and things like that. And so I'm excited that you've built this momentum that you're sharing with others to help redefine and embrace that. It's something that's just beautiful and powerful and growing the way you are. So talk to us a little bit about that, right? Some of us have businesses, and I'm not saying that this happens to everybody, but I know at certain times during the cycle of business, we end up in dark places, or we end up in businesses that are a little bit stressful, or they're just filled with problems. And sometimes it's difficult to get past that, right? So talk to us about the difference between working on purpose and working on a purpose. Those are breakthrough moments, right? That little A right there, on purpose, the task you got to get done. On a purpose helps you break through. So share with us a little bit about how you do that with business.
I would love to, because it's actually part of how I empower the students of the academy. So look, not every day is going to be a happy day, right? It's just not. It's life. And I think that the faster we can get ourselves to understand that and accept it for what it is, the faster we can move forward and work through it. And I think for me personally, that's come with age. And so I encourage you, if you are younger than me, you know, that you make a concerted effort, because if I had listened to mentors back in the day and really heeded their advice, you know, the whole concept of don't sweat the small stuff, you know, there's a reason why people say those things. It's these old adages, and it's because they're true. So how do you continue to work on a purpose? It goes back to your why. Okay. We all need to know what our why is. And when you can sit down, do a mind dump, write out like every single little reason, no matter how insignificant it may seem to you, but everything of why you are doing what you're doing, because it's our why that compels us to get up every day and keep working when it's a grind. It's our why that compels us to get through the hard days. We can tap into that deeper meaning of why we're doing what we're doing, but it's also our why that compels other people to action. So if you understand what I'm saying, is that my why and your guys' why, that's what's going to compel you each and every day to take action, no matter how tired you are, how much you might want to give up. Our why also compels other people into action. And that action is to collaborate with us, to send us clients, to be ambassadors for us out there, to basically start selling for us. Okay. Because our why is so compelling and so impactful, right? That it moves them. And that's also good leadership, right? So dictatorial leadership, it's not the best leadership. Right? The best leadership is someone that can use their words appropriately and move people to following them. So that's my advice. Figure out what your why is. Oftentimes we'll do an exercise and I'll ask people what their why is, and they'll go on for an entire paragraph, let's say. But as we go through the exercise, we work on paring it down. It needs to be concise and impactful, because many times when we communicate, if we can lower the number of words but use the right words, it has way more impact.
Yeah, there's something to be said about a succinct version of your story, right? That really shows and demonstrates not just the love that you have for your business, but the why behind it. And I'm so glad that you portrayed it that way, because there's a shift in mindset, and we've seen this occur in your business over the last 12 months, is a shift from somebody else's story to your own, right? It's ownership. It's owning that why. It's owning why you're getting up every day and doing what you do, because you have a passion. And that applies for everybody, whether you're an entrepreneur or a manager or somebody that's in the cycle of business. Owning your why and why you're existing, why you took that job, why you enjoy what you do every day, that's infectious, and it leads to others wanting to be your advocate. And when others are your advocate, they're your cheerleaders, you feel embraced, you feel powerful. And generally, I mean, we've seen this happen in your realm, the energy, again, it grows. It's literally like a little fire that it's kindled at the beginning and becomes a raging bonfire at the end of it. So thank you for sharing that, because I think that what you just said, which is not just visiting your why, but owning the fact that you have an obligation to share that why with others and share your life and allow them to, again, be part of it and advocate for you. That's powerful.
Mm-hmm. And, I think, let's be realistic, right? Let's be real about things. Not everybody is going to have a profession or a job that they feel a deep sense of connection to. But again, life is life. And if you have responsibilities, you've got babies to feed and bills to pay, I would encourage you, don't beat yourself up. Don't start going down the path and feeling like, oh, well, I need to find that profession. I mean, that's what we hope. But your why doesn't necessarily always have to be directly related to even what your profession is. It could be, you know what, I am doing this job. It's not where I want to, what I really want to do every day. But because of these responsibilities, maybe it's your children, or maybe it's what your goal is in the future, but you have to do this job you don't necessarily care for right now to set you up for that. So don't feel like your why even has to be related directly.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that. And I know that sharing some of the stories can be a little bit vulnerable, but that's one of the reasons why we do these meetups, is to give a little bit of insight and maybe some visibility into the ups and downs in business. And that shift in energy, we talk about shifting your why into what you're doing right now to get done what needs to get done, right? We all have bills to pay, isn't exciting, but knowing that you're in control of your story, taking ownership in your life story, that's what matters, and having the energy to do that. And before we get on the call, you and I were kind of talking about that. We were talking about how do you build energy? Because like you said, if you could have prior, you would have listened to your mentors, you would have heeded some of their advice, don't sweat the small stuff. And we all love coulda, woulda, and shoulda, like, scenarios. At the end of the day, they're great to reflect on, but in the now, what is something that Sarah has done to help bridge that gap to create some energy? I think we were talking earlier about the fact that you weren't really into the dream board things. So you kind of tried something else. Can you share with us what you did there?
Absolutely. So I got to give credit to Patrick Kagan of PK Solutions for this. So I was feeling this angst to really, I had my businesses, and then I went a different path, and then it kept eating away at me. I was like, I feel this calling to start focusing on my own stuff again, but I was having difficulty feeling confident in that decision and executing. And so Patrick brought Adam and I through this process calling Get Unstuck. And, it's kind of this concept of vision boarding. He doesn't really, talk about that. It's a different form of it, but at a base level, it's a vision board. And so I didn't have the time, nor did I have the desire to go to magazines and cut out the stuff. And I thought one night I was tired of feeling the way that I felt, stuck. Okay. So I said, I know how to use PowerPoint, and I pulled up a PowerPoint and I made a slide deck, and I called it Sarah's Life Prospectus, right? Businesses have a business plan, the prospectus, if you're, raising funds, all this stuff. Why can't we do the same thing for our lives? And so a part of what Patrick teaches is that you need to embody that, right? Get it so integrated into your spirit that you're living it and breathing it. And so I did pull it together, and it focused on, you know, relational. And so I put pictures of friends of mine that I hadn't been spending time with. And then I thought back to the times where I was the happiest in my life. And it was when I was being the goofiest, just having fun, going on hikes. And so I made a slide for that, which was, you know, the fun Sarah. I put exercise, I put dream homes, I put family, and then I went into the business aspect of it. And I started outlining, where do I want to take my business? If I'm going to start refocusing on it, relaunching it, where do I want to see it go? And so I did that, and I started looking at it every morning, every night, just like Patrick says to do. And over time, what happens is that it becomes believable, because sometimes we want things, but we can't even believe ourselves that we can have it. But if we keep looking at it, it's like we can see that it can be a reality. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, because sometimes people think, well, if I just think about it enough, I'm going to manifest it. It's just going to happen. And I tell my students this: you have to do the work. you have to do the work. But back to the why. You know, when you tap into that why and really want where you want to go, no matter how tired you are, you'll find the energy. You'll drive forward. You'll grind.
Yeah, I mean, and we've all got to do, like you said, the mundane things or the tasks or the grind to make things happen. But getting back to the why, I love what you've just shared there, by the way you called it a prospectus and raising funds, because at the end of the day, the way we value ourselves and our ability and our impact really drives our decisions. And so looking at yourself and the life that you love and the business that you have and what you're creating, it goes beyond just fancy cars and dollar signs. It's, why are you into it? What's the creative lifestyle you want? Why do you exist? And it really helps you to determine, are you going to a fine art dealer as an auction item that's just rare and everybody wants? Or are you going to the pawnbroker and you're just settling, right? Where are you at in the value chain for yourself? And I think if your values don't align, your mindset will never align, and the tasks ahead of you will always fall short. Always fall short.
They'll feel harder.
Yeah.
Right? If we're not aligned with what we're doing, everything feels harder. And you know, that's in relationships, regardless of type of relationship, but our relationship with ourselves, right? If we're not aligned in what we're doing, then everything's going to feel harder. And you know, so back to this value, if we can't even believe for ourselves what we want to accomplish, how the heck can we expect for anybody else around us to believe that we can, or that we, you know, that we're actually going to do it?
Yeah, no, and I'm glad that you talked on that, because if you don't start with the inner self-belief, which we know you've had all along, but this year it's really just broken free. You've really raised up your awareness, your value in the community and your impact. And I've seen it happen. And really everybody that's kind of surrounding you is building that back up. It's reciprocal. Yes, it takes energy. Yes, you have to get out there and grind, but you have to also appreciate the fact that if you put the good karma out there, if you align and value yourself in a meaningful way that really matters to you, it's going to come back, and it's going to come back in, you know, in spades. And so one of the things I want to talk about that is contribution-led communities, right? So when you really understand that you have a value and you have this ability, this bright light, this energy you want to share with others, and you get out there and you lead with contribution, aside from putting up a gatekeeper or kind of screening everybody, you get this opportunity of this almost entitled existence, right? I'm reading this book where they talk about, because you exist, you're entitled to be creative and have fun. Well, what's wrong with that? And you've done that. I think in your business this last year, we've really seen this. You've brought on experts that maybe in a previous life might have been either out of reach or intimidating. You've brought in people from different walks of life that aren't necessarily in the industry, because they have a new perspective. And there's something curious and exciting about that. And then, of course, you're leading and sharing your story as you grow. And I think there's so much power to that, Sarah. I've got to champion you on that, because if you share as you grow, others see it and they want to embrace it. They want to chase you. They want to be part of it. So thank you for all that you're doing so far.
Thank you. So, so sharing, right? So I am public, and I share things. When people are scared to be vulnerable, or they have an inability to be vulnerable, and I'm not knocking people for that, because oftentimes it relates back to childhood, right? Or even an adult, different experiences that have been had. But if you can take that risk and say, I have no expectations for how this is going to be received. I don't have any expectations of, some people will like it, some people won't, but I like what I'm doing. You know what I mean? And so when people have difficulty being vulnerable, it stifles their own personal growth, okay? Because when you're vulnerable, people will connect with you on an emotional level. We are emotional beings, no matter what. We are emotional beings. So if we can show ourselves in an authentic, vulnerable way, we will attract the right people that are meant to connect with us and support us. Back to, you had mentioned how I'm bringing in these subject matter experts, industry leaders, and maybe they might have been out of reach before. Here's the advice I have to share. Ask. If they say no, they say no. Who cares? They weren't meant for you, right? And so people naturally want to help you, but they don't know to help you unless you ask them to. And so take the risk. Take the risk. And you got to get over that fear of rejection. I think that's probably where it goes back to. But so long as you're not rejecting yourself, who cares if somebody doesn't want to collaborate with you?
Yeah, I think that what you've given us right there, the ask who cares mentality, it's a hard thing that a lot of us struggle with, but at the end of the day, the amount of new opportunities that you might have forsaken or just like overstepped that are coming your way are so, there's so many of them that just come out of the woodworks, right? And we've seen that with your growth in the community. And I love that you have a community all your own, because when you have this vulnerability, this authenticity, and people see you who you are, you see yourself who you are, and you're looking around and you say, I don't know it all. That's okay. I have somebody that does, and you embrace them. And guess what? They feel privileged that you respect them and you validated them. And then they want to give back and validate you. And being that connector, we've seen you do it. You're building communities that are literally touching on everybody's lives in a different way, whether or not it be in business and how to run a business, or how to respect aging and family services, or defining what it means to really figure out your own value and take that self-perspectives. It doesn't really have to be specific to one audience, because as you're putting things out there, your community is growing and the validation is growing back. And obviously we're seeing that in the chat. Lindsay's already said vulnerability makes us approachable, right? And that's true. Everybody wants to understand you're human. At the end of the day, if your job is hard and they assume that it's always hard because you're not sharing the moments that really drive that passion, well, they might not want to talk to you until there's already a problem. And then you're getting the friction as opposed to the love. And when you have this ability to overcome imposter syndrome, everybody suffers from that. And when they see that you're reaching out there and you're okay with yourself, you're okay with being vulnerable and building your community, they want to be like that too. And you attract like minds, you attract these value-based individuals, and your story gets really, really good, as opposed to being, she went to work, she went home, she fell asleep. She went to work, she went home, she fell asleep, right? So I really appreciate you for all that you're doing on that.
Thank you. My favorite thing about being real, vulnerable, open, all of that, my favorite thing about that is that it creates a safe space for other people to do it as well. So I'm a bit, the modeling of behavior, right? So if I'm meeting with you for the first time and I'm the one that says, I'm just going to be real, right? I'm going to talk about whatever comes to mind, and it's a very authentic exchange, then you're going to feel safe, right? To also be the same way. And I think that's where you really expedite connection. The faster I teach my students, right? Yes, it's the senior care industry, but when they're talking to referral partners or even families, that's why, again, the why is so important, is that the goal is to establish the emotional connection as quickly as possible.
No, I agree. People buy with emotion and defend with logic. Well, they make the same decisions in life too, on who they connect with and why they want to stay with them. They're going to be emotionally biased to somebody that's authentic and connected to them, even if there might have been a better option, closer or cheaper, right? It comes down to understanding that your value is that humanity, that connection, and that community that you're bringing to the table. And ultimately, like I said, it's your story. I keep harping on that. But when you're looking at a book as if it's somebody else's story, it's boring. It's something that you have to do. It's task driven. When you look at it like it's your story, it's exciting. It's new. It's discovery. It's curiosity. And yes, you might get it wrong, but guess what? Others are going to learn with you.
But tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We go to bed, we wake up, and it's a new day. And if we didn't like the way yesterday was, I'm a big believer in AARs, after action reviews. It's a military term, but you can use it on every aspect of your life, right? Okay, this day did not go that well. Use it for every meeting, every interaction if you want. But if you don't like the way something is, then do it differently. You know, make a change, do it differently. Maybe you can't make a massive change, but you can change some micro elements in your day when you wake up. I think a lot of it, because you're talking about impact, I've always felt like my driving force is to leave a long lasting impact on the world. And you know, I come from humble beginnings, and when I was younger, I was told I had a calling on my life and all this stuff. And I even got to the point where I would be talking to people and it's like, oh, I thought I would have done more by now. You cannot allow yourself to live in that mindset, because it will impede you from moving forward and establishing the impact that you want to have. But it has to start with, yes, I do want to have an impact, but I have to first believe that I can, that I am deserving, that I can do this, and I am smart enough. You know, those self-limiting beliefs. People do like me. People do want to work with me. I can help people. You know, it sounds kind of silly to say that, but you know, many of us go through our days feeling like, even if we're doing things, that we don't own our success, that we're only where we are because somebody gave us a chance. That is part of it. But did you not do the work and make the choices to get yourself there, right? So applauding ourselves. We applaud for other people all the time. What we fail to do many times is applaud ourselves. And that's not being arrogant. See, that's the other thing, mindset. So I used to feel like overly modest. You know, oh, well, I don't want people to think that I'm being arrogant. No, if you have a voice and a message to share and you want to have an impact, you're going to have to be out there promoting yourself. And that is not arrogant. That is how change happens, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you're not celebrating the wins while you go, it's kind of hard to realize you've even had the wins, especially if they're little steps along the way. And the self-limiting belief, that is such a sabotage for you, like internally, externally, the people around you, the community that deserve the best version of you. It's a hard thing to really overcome. And I'm so glad that you've shared with us your journey so far, because you really dialed in on how to shift that mindset, how to find that why and take ownership in your life. You've taught us how to gather some energy by laying out the prospectus and raising our own value, and then how to go out and find a community of like-minded people, because you need that. We all need that connection, right? Business happens because we work with people, but communities grow and embrace us so that we can see the little wins. We can celebrate them. And if we're stumbling a little bit, they can give us a pat on the back, dust us off, get us right back into the groove of it, right?
Right. And a tool, a way to cope. So, I mean, I still have days where I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. And then you have that voice in your head that's like, you don't really know what you're talking about. You know, I think that's normal. But a really good exercise that I've made up, I don't even know how I thought of it, but when I'm feeling a certain way, or if I have one of those thoughts, I actually visualize it in my mind as if I'm pulling up a Word document, and I'll put the statement like, whatever the negative thought is, and then I'll ask, is it true? Yes or no? Well, sometimes it could be true, and I don't want it to be true. So what am I going to do? So I visually bullet point, what do I have to do to change it? But many times, more times than not, whatever that thought is it true? Yes or no? The answer is no, it's not. So then what I do in my mind is I bullet point all of the things that that dispute that thought, and then it disappears. But having those exercises to help us get through those things, versus just letting that thought sit there.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up that, because it's something that you just saying that right now, I could imagine doing. And ultimately, when we're in business with others, there's the thoughts of what could have gone wrong or should have gone right, or those again, those beliefs that you want to check whether or not they're true. And that works with the people we're working with too, a little bit too, right? It's one of those, do they have ulterior motives, or am I just projecting that? Are they in business for me or for themselves? Are we actually a good match? Are these are questions that honestly, we all have these fears, and it limits our ability to really embrace one another, to grow from one another, to connect the way that we could, and challenge ourselves to even learn from one another, right? And so that is such a cool technique that you just shared, because I think it goes beyond just our own personal, introspective review. It's the people around us, the community we're building. And if we're really honest with ourselves, we're probably the ones with the ulterior motive, and we're projecting that. And it's actually the reason our community might be stifled or suffering, or maybe growing a little slower than we thought. And you have to get back out there and start looking at those around you, the connections you've made, the impacts you've had, because that's how you measure that success. And you realize, wow, I'm a lot further than I thought, or wow, this person really helped me.
Yes, definitely. And also being strategic and identifying when maybe somebody is not for you. Okay. So another really important element to kind of what we're talking about is boundaries. But if we don't pause to evaluate who's in our life and, all those thoughts, but if we don't pause to actually listen to them, process them with this, I mean, that's my technique, right? With the envisioning, the Word document, the bullet pointing, whole thing. But I use that when it comes to mothering, to marriage, to business, to friendships, everything, because that's just the way that I know. It makes sure that I process things. And it is true. Sometimes you might realize, wow, I need to invest more into this area because of, whatever you discovered in your way of processing. But sometimes you might discover that situation is no longer serving me, but you can move forward confidently in implementing a boundary. But the reason why you have the confidence to do it is because you've actually processed it. And for me, visual is important. So I've bullet pointed the reasons why it doesn't serve me. And if it doesn't serve you, it's not serving your why, right? Your bigger vision.
Now it's so important. I think if you're going to have boundaries, you've got to understand why. Make sure that it's not part of that self-limiting belief or the story that you might have been telling yourself prior. But at the same time, if you're approaching it from a protective stance because you've raised that value, like you said earlier, are we at the art auction or are we at the pawn shop? Where does our value actually lie? You become more protective, which means you're more proactive, and you're going to determine if those people in your community, in your life, in your business are the ones that really measure up to your needs, your successes, or if it's time for them to go find another person, another.
Right, exactly. And you know what? And the reality is sometimes just because there's 24 hours in a day, right? And so when you're looking at things, you may say, well, I really like this person. Well, sometimes you might determine, okay, this relationship is a bit toxic, or it's not equitable. And so, various reasons for why you might distance yourself from a situation or a person. Okay. And sometimes it could be for negative reasons, because that's life. Again, we need to stay based in reality, not what we want reality to be, but what the actual reality is, so we can create our reality to be what we want it to be. Sometimes we may decide that we just don't have the capacity for certain relationships, regardless of type, because it's taking away from the energy that we need to bring our vision to the next level. And you can still like that person and respect that person, but you just in the current moment don't have the capacity to invest in that relationship.
Yeah, and you mentioned respecting that person. If you're dialing in to what Lindsay said in the chat, which is getting clarity on your vision, and you've determined that that person might not understand it or be part of it, sometimes if you approach it a little bit more curious or energized, and you share with them that you're on a different path or you see it differently, oftentimes they've maybe made a mistake, or they've fallen short, or maybe they want to embrace your vision. And because you've brought it up, now they want to be your cheerleader. They want to compete and rise to the occasion. And you find a totally different person now, right? They thought that before maybe you guys had a rift, and you've decided to bridge the gap by saying, hey, no, this is my story. This is what I'm going to do. And then they celebrate that, right? It's like when you have an employee that, you know, quiet quitting is a big thing right now. Maybe the employee doesn't know what the vision of the company is, and maybe they're quitting because they just feel neglected, or they feel like they're just noise in the background. Going to them and sharing with them that they are part of the journey and your vision is XYZ can reinvigorate that. And it goes for
so yes, definitely. But we all have a responsibility to communicate with each other. So in that situation, the other side of it is that employee going and communicating to the leadership about how they're feeling? Right? So you can't be mad. I mean, I see both sides of that. We can't assume that somebody knows what's going on in our mind. We are not mind readers. And so we all have a responsibility to communicate with each other about what we want, what's working well, what needs to be improved, and be comfortable having those real conversations.
Yeah, and that goes for everybody up the chain, employees all the way to co-founders. I mean, everything in between it's communication driven. And if they feel neglected or forgotten, well, they should be speaking on it, because again, that goes back to the clarity of their vision, the ownership of their story. We talked about that at the beginning. And that's why energy is actually infectious. It's contagious. It's something we want in our communities. And Sarah, we've already seen that in your community over the last year. I keep saying this over and over again, but your group is growing. The interaction is exciting. The people that celebrate and give kudos to the impact they've felt. I mean, it's just amazing seeing that stuff grow. And the fact that you're doing it in such an area of the industry that has typically been, like I said, weighed down by red tape, obligation, and kind of sadness. So thank you for what you're doing and what you shared with us today. Obviously, it's hard to build a business. It's harder to build on a purpose and create a community around that. You've given us a lot of tips today. One of the things we always like to do is kind of open it up at the end. You know, we're at the end of our hour, so I want to be respectful to the community members that are here. You know, if anybody wants to celebrate, share comments, or ask questions, now is the time. And I'll just start. Sarah, thank you for, number one, sharing with us that your journey is still rising, right? And for giving us so many visual metaphors. I think that I'm going to take a lot of those home myself and really just kind of take inventory.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. I mean, sitting here and talking about this stuff, I don't know. I kind of shocked myself with some of the things I said. Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to jump in. Hi. Good to see you guys. God, Sarah, I'm just, I've been listening since at the bottom of the hour, and I'm like, man, you have so much wisdom to share. I love your energy. You're so inspiring. Was really thinking a lot about your comments about making an impact. And so often we don't understand the impact that we're making to people around us, right? And I think a lot of times people don't share how someone is impacting their lives. And I know that I've had mentors throughout my life, and I've tried to tell them how much I appreciate them, because I think that that's really important. There are just people who have a gift of being positively impactful. And so, my thing is always to try to tell people that, because there's so much unspoken, especially in business. So that's one thing. The other thing, Adam, you were talking about just overall with, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it was you, Sarah, but just talking about how people don't communicate things, even like if they're unhappy, and, employees leaving a company because, they're unhappy and don't feel heard. And Sarah, I liked a lot about what you said, that people need to say something. And it's so, I hear that, especially in companies like, where Elena and I work, it's, it's not a huge company, right? But it's a bigger company. And some people say like, I'm happy about this. And I'll ask them like, well, have you said that to your manager? Or have you said that to your coworker? And they'll be like, no. And I'm like, you got to do it, because if you don't, you're not being true to yourself either.
So I think I worked for a company one time, and I really enjoyed how they did this, they systemized that,
Mm.
right? Like they, as an organization, made that part of how they operated, which was, okay, in this meeting where we all come together once a week, we're going to provide some positive feedback. And we're also going to talk about what's not working well, like where are we having issues with each other even. It was a very, but they had brought in an organizational leadership person that kind of guided them on this, but it really improved the cohesiveness of the team. And allowed for people to feel as though it was a safe space to communicate maybe sometimes the not positive feedback. But they really cultivated that you share the positive things. So Rachel, the one thing that you said, and this is real time right now. So you're talking about sharing the positive things with people. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. And I've unfortunately encountered this lesson more times than what I would have liked to at this point, right? Whether it be a soldier that passed away, my dad at 53, you know, of family members, friends. But I recently had a former soldier at 30 years old pass away, and the impact that that person had on my life, you know, meant a lot, but I didn't communicate it because we get so busy. So I double down like times 10 on what you just said about how we should all really make a better effort of letting people know how much they mean to us.
By the way, I saw your post about, you know, the guy that was in your, I don't know, your squad. So really, really sorry about that. And, you know, I've so many times thought about that as well, about, you know, people who are struggling or people who've passed away or whatever. And I wish I had said X, but at the same time, we can't be hard on ourselves because most of us, you know, especially as you get older, you know, a lot of people, right? You've encountered so many people in your lives. And it's impossible to try to keep up with everybody and all you can do is your best, right?
Right. And we can't get trapped in that guilt. We were talking about guilt at the beginning of this call. Guilt will stifle your progression. And you know, you got to say, well, you know, they meant a lot to me. I wish I'd communicated it and move on, because they wouldn't want you to be stuck in that guilt trap.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for that, Rachel. And I think that there's a lot of value in understanding that when we have the opportunity, we should speak, regardless of if it's up or down the chain. You know, if you're feeling invisible, it could be because you're doing such a good job. Everybody wants to be hands off and not micromanage you. If you're feeling like that you're not doing a good job, maybe it's a chance to learn and grow. Maybe even as a manager, you know, it's always a give and take, and we have to avoid the guilt. So thank you for mentioning that, Sarah. And I'm going to shut up now because Patrick's got his hand up and he wants to offer you some questions or kudos as well.
Yeah, no, I was politely raising my hand. I'm trying to lower my hand right now. There we go. Sorry. I love something you said earlier. I wrote it down, Sarah, because you were talking about your why, which we all hear people go, what's your why? And, you know, it gets overplayed. And what you said was very subtle and very impactful. And you talked about having no timeline on your why, letting it come to you. And I thought that was really, really important, because I think a lot of folks think about pursue your passion. And it means like quit my job right now and start a business right now or do something right now. And like you said, sometimes you're in a job because it serves a purpose, and a why may have nothing to do with your career. So I thought that was really important. You said something else, and I have firsthand experience from working with you, knowing this, that you said it's not easy, you have to do the work. And you kept talking, but what I know about you is that you do the work, you put in the grind and the work, and you're a very open and caring and honest person. So that's, I think, why you're where you are, because you definitely put in the work. And then I've heard this phrase a couple times today about a safe space. And safe space to me is like a padded room where there's an employer and an employee. And you can bash each other into the padded walls if you want, or you can avoid it still hurts, right? So it takes effort to create that. And one of the things I wrote down is that I think we all need to find that safe space for whatever it is for us. If we can't find it, we have to create it. And then you have to defend it with your life, because
Mhm.
when you have it, it's valuable, it's invaluable. And when it's taken from you or you lose it, you always want it back.
Mhm.
So I just think that's such an important thing. And I've seen you do all of these things. And I think it's why you're beyond catching fire, you're catching flight right now. So my
Thank
kudos.
you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
No question in there, just a bunch of kudos.
Thank you. See, we talk about self-limiting thoughts because you just said all those positive things. And I'm like, oh, am I really doing that good? See, we all have it. We just have to, the first step in everything is recognizing and admitting it, right?
The only one talking to us our entire life is us. And most of the time, Lindsay put something in the comments about journaling successes, and it's so important. I'm like, yeah, it's completely important, but yet we spend most of our days thinking about what we think we can't do. We spend most of our time in a neutral or negative mind speak. So no wonder people are walking around it not feeling safe. We're tearing ourselves down. So
Mhm.
it is, I echo what she said. It's so important to make the time and make it a habit. So
Mhm. And
you
one
are,
thing that I like too, and I would say this is I've really come into it just in recent times, is that if we all take the time, some quiet time to ourselves, we know who we are. I think that each one of us needs to know what our personal core values are. We hear about core values all the time in a company, right? But what are our personal core values, and who are you? Because when you get very clear about that, we get very clear about that for ourselves, you will not let other people tell you who you are. And too often, many of us experience that in life, regardless if it's in business or personal relationships, or even our parents at some point in life. They try to tell you who you are, and you believe them because you haven't yet decided and really latched on to who you know you are. So figure out who you are and know it and believe it, and do not let other people tell you who you are.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I think shifting that mindset to dialing in that core value, driving that ownership of your why in your life, and that you have the control of your story, and then building out those characters around you, the community that's going to drive and feed off that energy and give you energy, and the reciprocation. That is a beautiful thing. And then, like what Patrick said, be protective of it, right? You got to be ready to protect it and defend that, because it's not just about the moment, it's about what it does to you and your inner psyche and how you feel about yourself. If you let people in that continually erode your values, well, you're going to start to believe yourself that you're eroding inside, and you're going to start falling apart. So be protective of that, and that's kind of why we do these meetups, right? It's sharing, like what Lindsay said in the comments, which is the opportunity to have real conversations. It doesn't always have to be in the form of a scheduled meeting on the calendar. It's the creative environment that you're allowed to communicate with each other, that you trust each other, that you want to grow from each other. And that's really what drives it, even if you're in real life and virtual or whatever. So thank you for, sharing the journey. Lindsay's got her hand up. Lindsay.
Hey, so I just wanted to say a couple of things. One, I think there's something to be said about when you have that feeling, like when someone says something about you, and when you decide that's not for you. For me, it always started when I started listening to my body. When you talked about processing earlier, like not just being the soldier through the emotion, but stopping for a second just to say, wait a minute, something's coming up for me right there. And if I don't agree, that's good. That's great, because it's telling me that it's not part of my vision. Like that, it kind of like chips away at the statue that you're building. And yes, it's going to be rubble on the floor, but like knowing, like that red pen is going to help create the ultimate clarity of the vision that you want.
Right.
So I wanted to say that, which I love. I think it's important to know what's not for you, just as important it is for us to know what is for us. And I also wanted to reflect on my experience. So the last meeting, I was telling you that I was in a flow, and I'm like still feeling like I'm in a flow. And I'm super grateful to have a partner in business. We don't have a big company. We just have the two of us. So, and we're best friends. And I think that allows you to take like a lot of care and attention and intention when you're building something. And we have scheduled in like regular quarterly sessions where we step away, we go out and we have some really good food and we have some drinks and we have an agenda and we talk about what's working and what's not working and what's on the roadmap for the next couple of months. And we're really reflective and intentional instead of letting things just kind of steamroll us. And the last thing that I wanted to say, I think I'm going to remember all of them. We were talking about giving people love in real time. And I just wanted to mention that there are, yes, you should totally say it to people. And one thing that I'm going to do from this meeting is actually write a handwritten card to all of my clients, because it's something that I think is beautiful. And I thought about it because a guy that I interviewed who is fabulous, his name's Doug Dosberg. He runs Hey Taco, and Hey Taco is something you can add on to Microsoft or Slack. And it's a peer recognition software that if someone did something good, you get like 5 tacos a day, and you just like give out tacos, like proverbial tacos throughout the day. Like, hey,
I
really
did get
love
excited
being-
because I thought you were talking about real tacos. I was like, I love tacos.
I know. It can ultimately resolve into tacos that are real life. But when you have a virtual team, it's just kind of cool. And like to have a system around, like, let's give love. Like you get an allotment every day. So make sure you do that. And you could give them 5, you could give them 1. So whatever that system looks like for you and your business, it's nice to normalize the love, like you were saying. So anyway, thank you.
No, that's great. I'll have to check out that software that you're talking about, Hey Taco. So the other benefit to when this particular company put structure around creating that safe space, providing not only the good feedback, but sometimes making sure people knew it was okay to have these tough conversations, is that it significantly lowered the amount of organizational drama that was going on. Right? Because if you can say, guys, we say one of our core principles is honesty, right? But every company, for the most part, says that. Well, what does that mean? Are we just being honest with our clients and our referral partners? But here we are in our company talking behind each other's backs. That's not embodying honesty as an organization, right? And so usually what ends up happening is there's a lot of unneeded drama because everybody's talking behind each other, and then the work environment becomes a bit uncomfortable, and then you're always wondering, I don't know if they like me. And so this company just said, nope, this is how we're going to do it. We say we're all about honesty. We're going to be honest with each other even when it's really difficult to provide certain feedback to each other. It really changed the course of the company.
Thanks for that. It's interesting when you put out that it is okay to have structure around what is supposed to be a difficult conversation, how easily people embrace it if you lead the dance, if you're the person that's offering the example. One of my clients taught me a long time ago that if you're going to come up to them with a complaint, you should also come up to them with some form of solution. No matter how bad that solution is, as long as you have some form of solution, it's no longer a complaint fest. It's all about creative learning or looking at how can we solve this better. So it disarms everybody, and it's just a little bit of fun. Rachel, thanks for being on today. We are at the end of our hour, so I just want to say thank you again for your time, Sarah, and just sharing your story with us. And Lindsay, for that little end right there with the tacos. My 8-year-old, when he gets excited about something, he just goes, talk about it, which is hilarious. That's all I can think about when you said that. That's the excitement. I imagine all those employees just jumping up and shouting that. So yeah, thank you to everybody that was here today, being part of the conversation, and just for being part of the community.
I really enjoyed talking with you guys. All of the things that we talked about are areas that I just enjoy talking about them. So I appreciate you guys being in conversation with me.
Well, thank you for the update, and we are excited to see where the next 12 months take you. Obviously, it's going to continue to grow because you are just an amazing person. So again, thank you for taking the time with us today, and to everybody else, have a fantastic weekend. You're also amazing, and we will love on you in the community.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys. Thank you.